Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Andrew Conspiracy. We have my lovely co-host, Mr. Do, and myself, Andrew, and we're gonna go ahead and settle into this episode. I got a new breath technique from the book, The Four Agreements. I'm gonna call it the pleasure breath, but I'm just gonna read literally what he wrote in the book, and then we'll do it. So. This is the idea. Focus your attention on your lungs as if only your lungs exist. Feel the pleasure when your lungs expand to fulfill the biggest need of the human body, to breathe. Take a deep breath and feel the air as it fills your lungs. Feel how the air is nothing but love. Notice the connection between the air and the lungs, a connection of love. Expand your lungs with air until your body has the need to expel that air, and then exhale and feel the pleasure again. Because when we fulfill any need of the human body, it gives us pleasure. To breathe gives us much pleasure. Just to breathe is enough for us to always be happy, to enjoy life. Just to be alive is enough. Feel the pleasure to be alive, the pleasure of the feeling of love. So I think, we're just going to close it down. We'll take, 3 nice, real deep breaths and just, feel that pleasure, feel that love. And,
Feel it down into deep into your lungs.
and we'll feel it just really penetrate. All right, everyone, now settle in and we'll take a nice, long, deep breath. And out. And in. All the way full. And out. And one more. In. And out. Was that so pleasurable?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm in
Excellent.
agreement.
All right. Well, there's our conspiracy kicked off and rolling.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Andrew. As ever, a great job with the breath and just remember, people, this is a conspiracy, and conspiracy is not a political agenda. It means to breathe together. Con with breathe, inspire, which also has inspire, but also expires, so be careful.
Well, if you don't breathe, you will expire. I'm pretty confident about that one.
Exactly. But about my poetry today. Today is September 6th, and on September 7th, there's going to be a full lunar eclipse. And lunar eclipses have been very significant in my life. As I'll tell you briefly in a second, but I knew I had like some lunar eclipse poetry, but I didn't know whether I could find it. And then in Fossil Fuel for the Brain, I did find not only I found one poem, lunar eclipse poem, and then when I opened the book, I looked at the other side and there was another lunar eclipse poem. So we got 2 lunar eclipse poems for the lunar eclipse tonight, and even though this is being released on Monday, it's still a timeless message, and the lunar eclipse will still be having an effect even on Mondays. So, but I'll read the poem, then I'll briefly tell my lunar eclipse story. Wandering under the lunar eclipse. O Dialina, starship of my deepest dreams, to where have you vanished as I live an alien life on this world earth? And when will you appear to snatch the girls and me to the planet of Ishkabab, heaven for the icons who have left this material realm to continue their existence on globe of salvation and faith, while awaiting pure bliss of reunions with their loved ones, even as you speed around the cosmos, for those who don't believe in your reality of happy voyage through infinite space. So basically, uh, uh, just as a preamble to the lunar eclipse story, I always felt that on lunar eclipses was the time when everything was blacked out in the sky, so you could see the dialina, and the dialina, which is my spaceship, and which is like the core supply source of resources for this planet, would come on lunar eclipses and leave supplies. But this lunar eclipse is even more incredible because not only have I, well, so this lunar eclipse signifies the end of a 50-year lunar eclipse LSD schizophrenic trip that I've been on since August 3rd, 1975. Actually, since May 25th, 1975, when there began a full lunar eclipse on the moment my 20th birthday ended. And so, that's the first lunar eclipse. And I said on that night, this means I have to go crazy for 10 years because I knew I was going to be affected by lunacy. But the lunacy lasted, well, I came to Hackensack, and the lunacy could have ended after 10 years, but then there was like the death of Dale, which basically blew everything up. I came up with a term for what happened on September 27, 1984. Andrew, do you know what it is?
No.
Omniversal obliteration.
Okay.
So anyway, so basically, as of tonight, September 7th, 2025, this will be closed the official portal door of my 50-year journey through lunacy, and I will be fully back to Dale. And Dale, as I said, September 27, 1984 was omniversal obliteration. So everything died except the Dewey death reality, which was kept like a secret. And when people say don't play small, I had to play small because I had to like get so small I disappeared because the radiation was following us for 40 years. So, but that's the end of the lunacy cycle, and that's just a story that I wanted to say that tonight the 50-year lunacy of Dale Edward Walsh, Roger Joseph Dale Edward Alan Tompkins Walsh officially comes to an end, with the blessing of the heavens and the universe. So God bless, and I have my second lunar eclipse poetry at the end, poem at the end, but this brings us right into the second agreement, Andrew, which is don't take things personally, which I could have done very easily, but I'm trying not to. But why don't you continue with your exposition about the four agreements?
Sure. Thanks, Dale. Thanks for your story and your poetry. So yeah, don't take anything personally. And his summary is basically nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you take things personally because you agree with whatever they say. So if they're insulting you and you believe it's true because you have a low self-image, that's where like it kind of takes you over. And as you agree, the poison goes through you and you are trapped in the dream of hell. So we've talked a lot about sovereignty and stuff like that, but so it is sort of in alignment with that to some degree because we think we hear these things other people say about us, but then we fail to realize that it's not actually directed at us. It's a reflection of their inner state, and once you realize that, then you don't. It doesn't really matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what their opinion is of you. For the most part, right? You are the one driving the bus, and let me think if there's.
Right. Uh, on the other hand, though, and I'm sure I think Ruiz points this out, is that not taking things personally, the second agreement is probably the hardest there is to overcome. Because every time anybody says anything about anybody, whether it's gossip or a truth to you or something that's a complete lie about you, you're going to take personally because that's just like the interaction of individuals, and therefore the ability to detach and look at things and not take them personally is really like a major battle that maybe not battle is the right word. I'm trying to get my war talk out of our talks, Andrew, but it is a major dilemma for a lot of people because they want to be detached, but their emotions and their thoughts won't let them.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and he kind of breaks it down in an interesting way because there's the external where you're not taking things personally that other people say, but then there's also the internal when one part of you is talking to another part of you, and you take that personally. So there's like an internal component that creates division too when you like take I don't know I thought that was super fascinating, and then I think there was one level deeper, but the thought is that not every thought that comes into your mind is yours,
Right.
and so there's like a level of discernment there too. Like, wait, is that thought mine? Is that coming in from the field? Do I agree with it? Do I latch onto it, or is it just something that what do they call it? People say, "Oh, I just had a random thought," or random intrusive thought come
Right.
in. Well, some of those aren't yours, and so not taking those as a part of yourself either is part of that agreement. And you're right; it is difficult, mostly because of identification and the ego. Right?
Right.
That's why you take it personally, is because I'm identifying with this idea. This person is expressing something about me, and it is about me, but that's where you've been lost in the trap, is when you assign that everything is actually about you when it's almost never it actually is never about you.
But it's also about judgment and about judgment not only of yourself and others, but also judgment. Oh, I know why I'm going. This is actually my real point there. One is that in my own case of my diagnosis, the diagnosis was like so deeply embedded, so almost violently into my system. You know, not only in the first hospital, which it was tolerable. I mean, it was all tolerable because I was going to flow. But basically, in the first hospital, it was like hardcore psychiatric immersion, and then the program for 5 years, and that was like true. Let's see how much we can like manipulate Dale into being the person that all his authority figures want him to be. And I refused. And that's why I went to the hospital for 50. And, but, so I would go to the hospital basically for three reasons. One, I needed a vacation from reality, from program reality. Two, because there was a duck offensive going on, and it was time to like kick out the mucks. And three was to be able to be observed in absolute clinical situation. So basically, just to show myself to the hospital and to science what I could do, and but at the deep part of it is all this time I was just thinking I have to be more and more mental in order for people to keep an interest in me.
Mm.
Which of course is like a really weird way of thinking and everything, but this is how the paranoid schizophrenic mind works, but anyway, so it was like but this programming of being a mental case was so deeply embedded, and we were talking earlier about not only the mind, but how trauma is like embedded in the very cells of your body, and there are 9 trillion cells, and each cell feels like every trauma separately and everything, and it's actually pretty mind blowing, uh, but that programming, that domestication, that was of intense, uh, you know, self doubt and low self esteem, your mental case, affected me. It took me basically 40 years to get over the trauma of it. I'm still not over. I mean, to really like come to actualization of not only what it meant, but also how deeply I'd been manipulated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's that programming, right? And you were susceptible to it for whatever reason. To you began to take these ideas as a part of yourself, and then had to go through like this process of undoing it. Yeah. Hmm.
I'm sorry, I think I got off the track, but
Well, no, not really.
I think the point I was trying to make is well, don't take anything personally. I mean, life throws at you not only what you can handle, but also what's meant for you to learn the lessons. So, as I said, I could be very bitter, and there have been times when I've been bitter and stuff, but it's counterproductive, and it's low vibrational, and it doesn't serve any purpose to be bitter. I mean, you just
Well,
like look at it and you say, there is no failure, there is only lessons.
right. Well, and that's where forgiveness comes in because yeah, you had an experience and you bought into it for whatever, for a period of time and now you're in a different spot, but like, you forgive that past version of itself because, it was that dude was doing the best it could, And
Right.
he has a good quote. If others say one thing and do another, if others say one thing and do another, you are lying to yourself if you don't listen to their actions. I like that
Right.
because talk is cheap. You know what I'm saying? And the actions are actually what matter in most cases. The words aren't really all that important. So if someone says, I love you, but then they do something that demonstrates the exact opposite of that, don't buy don't buy what they're selling, buy what they're doing. And I thought, to me, like when you're taking things personally, a lot of the times you're taking the words personally and not,
Right.
something beyond that.
So I
Um,
came up with something like sort of about that. Actions speak, excuses break.
good. I like your rhyming. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then we flow into the next one. Don't make assumptions. All of the sadness and drama in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. The whole war of control between humans is about making assumptions and taking things personally. Our whole dream of hell is based off of that. He goes so far as to say, like, basically all human conflict would end if we stopped taking things personally and making assumptions. And making assumptions, I mean, there's that old phrase, right? When you make an assumption, you make an ass of you and me.
Right.
and there's some truth there. But it comes down to like we we see what we want to see and we hear what we want to hear, and that's the assumption, right? That's the assumption mode is someone tells me something, I'm not exactly clear what they mean, but I'm gonna make it mean what I want to make it mean,
Right.
and now we haven't even communicated. It's I took their words and I twisted them around in my own brain, and now they aren't even the original words anymore. So, like when you're impeccable with your word, you don't have to make assumptions because you're just gonna say what is.
Right.
Um, but the other thing I'll with that is like it's about when you're not clear on something, asking the question, right? When someone says something, you're like, then ask for clarification because if you sit with what they told you and you don't actually know clearly, now you've added a layer of distortion to the message they're trying to deliver, and it may or may not be what was intended in the first place.
Well, I think that's a very apt image as a layer, because the more dishonest you are and the more you keep your silence, the more you add layers to the onion of the other person rather than unfolding them, you know? So I think that's a very good point. But what I'm going to say is, you know, after all our talk of the nurture of nature and sovereignty and everything, it's really like you know, to what degree, how deep and how like deeply can you uproot the basic assumptions that are running your life that are really defining who you are,
Yeah.
because everything is an assumption. I mean, and we Donald Trump is the president of the United States is an assumption based upon
Okay.
based on how we're taught to perceive. You know,
I like it.
so so everything is an assumption, but but you know, talking about the onion, you know, the layer can be the onion can be like built up more and more layers, adding assumptions on upon assumptions upon the basic fallacy of the untruth that they're building upon, or you can peel back the layers of the onion and really like start digging into what are the assumptions that are driving me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a relationship is one place where those can be revealed. He gave several examples, but one was marriage, right? We enter marriage or a the relationship, the real basic one. Like when we enter a relationship, we start with like this idea that we like the other person, and then we look for evidence to support that belief, and then we encounter like these little red flags along the way, and they don't align with our initial beliefs, so we kind of push them aside until shit gets real. We get into
Right,
agreement, disagreement, or something like that, and then all of a sudden, all these things that we've been like kind of pushing away as we go fade, and then we also enter like we have an idea of what something is, like you were saying. People have like marriage, for example, right? People have a lot of ideas of what marriage is, and then they enter it with someone else, and now we have this person's version of marriage and this person's version of marriage, and they're assuming yours is the same, and if they're not, then all of a sudden something's going to happen, and they'll be like, hey, I had an expectation that you would do this in this scenario because I assumed you knew me well enough to know what I wanted,
right,
blah, blah, blah. And then we create these expectations that aren't based in reality, right? And I think that's what you're pointing to is we don't even realize we're carrying the assumption until it comes like into our
right.
field of
But
awareness.
the same about marriage, of course, is it brings God into it too. So I mean, because a lot of couples base their marriage upon the precepts of what their God tells them marriage is. So, so then that's like a whole different subject. But talking about assumptions, talking, but assuming that there is a God who like has an idea of an ideal marriage is like a very basic assumption of a lot of couples that are getting married. I meant. Whatever you think about like male female relationships at this point, it seems like there is a trend towards much more sort of like traditional, even biblical, or like traditional marriage where the woman maybe is equal or submits to the male. I mean, this is what I see in the memes I see on Instagram. Maybe it's just my algorithm, but
Well, it
but you
might
know,
be.
but I think that like a lot of there's like there because God is now entering the conversation in a lot of areas where basically he's been excluded for a long time. And I think that's part of the growing consciousness and awareness of the world. You know, marriage and other issues, social justice, responsibility, authority, sovereignty, the things we talk about, you know, external judgment versus internal acceptance. All these things are starting to sort of like bubble up, and in the minds of like more and more people as they realize the assumptions that they've been working under are totally invalid.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, I think we assume that other people see life the way we do,
Right.
right? And when you assume that, you basically map your whole like relationship field onto that other person, whether it's accurate or not. And so all these things basically are taking us further away from truth. I think that's the essence of it, right? We're we're layering things on top of people where they may or may not exist. And how do we know? You ask the question. I mean, I really think that's what it comes down to
Right.
is like this level of like curiosity instead of assuming you have it all figured
Right.
out, and that oh well and we do that a lot, right? We'll say, oh, they grew up Christian, so that means they have this, and this value, and so that means I don't have to ask about any of those because they're already set in default. But
Well, we're having a tropical storm. I have to close my window.
oh, okay,
Big storm.
okay, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean
Also,
to interrupt.
well, no, all good. He made it another great line. It's like about entering a relationship with the idea that your love will change them.
Right.
People only change if they want to change, and if you need to change someone, you don't actually like them.
Right.
And being the other point he made, which I think is brilliant, is like being authentic and transparent, especially with someone you have an intimate relationship with, is critical because if you're putting on a mask, then you're not even giving them the opportunity to get to know you. You're giving them the opportunity to know this like thing you've curated, and now this person thinks they like you, but they don't. They like the thing you're curating, and when that wall, that facade eventually fades because it takes a lot of energy to maintain, you're left with like a relationship that isn't really based in reality.
Right.
And
Well, that's the sad reality, and about like a lot of relationship. I've never been part of hookup culture or anything. I mean, I had like the only one, the only one night stand I ever had lasted 10 days. But anyways, so but um, this gets back to the assumptions that we make not only about about like you know, traditional things, but also modern things, and um, we're at a point where the tower of the structure of the old ways has been hit by lightning and a tornado, and the tower is falling down, and people are falling out of the tower, you know. So, um, but the assumption that everyone makes you're exactly right, is that everybody is like me. I mean, it took me basically going to boarding school to realize that everybody in life wasn't a New York Yankee fan. And in fact, there were many people who vehemently hated the Yankees, you know? But
Yeah.
and that's all part of the maturing process and everything. But you know, it's just like e- ev- everything that you believe actually, you know, probably is an assumption of some sort, and therefore, there, you know, you can do endless work, uh, you know, rooting out your assumptions, but ultimately you got to be who you are. So you act like you know, you act like you are, but but if someone has a mask, then it's not fear of it's a fear of showing their it's their own fear of showing their identity that's really going on, and that's where the weakness is.
Yeah, and they're making an assumption that they're going to be judged or ridiculed or whatever instead of giving the other person the opportunity to do what, react the way they are
Right.
naturally inclined to. And with that, there's a line about learning to ask for what you want. And to me, that's, well, as a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, learning to ask for what you want is so huge because the other person can say no, you know? Just like when someone asks you for something, you can say no. Um,
Right.
we're so like ingrained in this, well, me, to that if I say yes, it'll make them happy, and so even if it's not really in alignment, I'll just do it because it'll make them feel
Right.
better,
Right.
right? And so there
And
too,
then I
we're
can pat myself on the back for being a philanthropic guy.
exactly. But there's so many assumptions that come in there, and it's not creating the clarity of communication that's required for people to actually have an authentic relationship, to connect on that level instead of this surface mask egoic bullshit. so
Right.
so yeah, I think
Well,
that was a
I'm going through that right now. You know, like making new friends and stuff. It's just like, you know, I basically have like a a shield of skepticism, I should say, around everybody I meet. You know, but that's all. I also am realizing that's part of my past, and I don't. The less I judge, the better off I'll be. But if something tells me there's a red flag, then I should like take note of it. But ultimately, I just ask Jesus to guide me in this relationship, and whatever happens, happens.
well, and you can always ask too. I can't let that one go because if something happens in a relationship and it feels confusing or it's new and you're not sure where the other person is standing, you can ask.
Right. Well, you know, I just you know, every individual event is a different thing, and you know, basically, I feel that you know, he didn't thank me for coming over. You know, he's been over a few times. He only thanked me once, and you know, and he always drinks all my water, and you know, and smokes and stuff, and so. And then he like just sits and laughs in the chair and is like, okay, well, you know, so if this is disrespect, then I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need you in my life, you know? So, but it's also realizing he's from a completely different culture. He's from like hardcore black New Jersey background, and he struggled all his life, and he's working to build a business and get himself together and everything. So that's the flip side. So, the important thing is don't make assumptions about anything. Just like ask Jesus to guide it, and Jesus, if there, I've never felt in physical danger, but I also feel that he could beat my ass if he wanted to. He's a pretty powerful guy, so,
Well,
but,
it sounds like you have an opportunity to put boundaries in if you actually care about this relationship.
that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That, I'm just going,
You can
I'm
say,
just
yeah,
going,
hey, bring your own water next time, bro. Or whatever. Like, it could be as simple as that. Or hey, I don't really like having to go to the store to buy you water every time. Can we be,
no, it's
can,
all filtered water from my
oh,
tap.
sure. All
So
right.
that,
Well,
but it's just like I have a four bottle supply, and every time he comes over, the bottles are all gone. By
well,
the end of
sounds
the
like you need to increase your supply.
I think he needs to cool his retro rockets, to tell you
Yeah,
the truth.
maybe. All right, and
And
then the
fourth, or are we at the fourth agreement
yes,
now?
the fourth agreement is always do your best. This is the action step, really, and it's basically your best is going to change from moment to moment, from day to day. You might wake up one morning amped and like ready to hit the day, and your best is going to be up here. And you wake up one day and you're sick, or just not motivated, and so it's going to be a little lower. And to kind of give yourself grace as you navigate that. But if you're always doing your best, then like you're you're going to make progress through these agreements. And you might say, oh, I fell down and I made an assumption, right? But just acknowledge it. Don't beat yourself up about it. You're doing your best to incorporate these agreements into your life, and it's actually a pretty significant undertaking. So don't have this expectation that it's just going to be like this instantaneous transformation. And trying too hard, it's like a balance between trying too hard and 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 then doing less than your best, right? And if you can find sort of the middle ground between the two, because when you're always doing your best, there's no room for regret or internal judgment, because you can always answer, well, I was doing my best, and that will be true for you.
Um, and when someone says, "Well, your best isn't good enough," you say, "Fuck you," and leave.
Well, you wouldn't take what they're saying personally. You would
Right.
say that it's a projection of their book of law onto yours, and you can do with it whatever the hell you want. But
And you
it,
can, you can, I'll throw the book at you.
yeah. And there's really, he's pointing out that like you're not here to sacrifice your joy or your life. You're here to live. And I think those overachiever types, they feel like if they're not suffering a little bit in their pursuit, that they're not trying hard enough or something. And that's actually a distortion. It points to like an inauthentic expression, because if you're doing things you love, they generally don't feel like a chore. They feel like something you want to do. And so me and my former job, right? I didn't enjoy the effort. I didn't enjoy it, so I didn't do my best. I was just doing enough to like get the paycheck every 2 weeks, and
Right.
working for the weekend type vibes. And so bringing that mindset to like, hey, am I engaging in this activity in a way that's gonna bring out my best, my highest capability, and or am I just trying to please someone else, and therefore, and I have this like level of like internal judgment because I'm making someone else happy.
Right.
I went and let out my buddy's
I,
dogs today. Was
I don't feel that I've ever wasted a moment in my life, but I did work as an insurance agent for 3 years, and that's like the only. And it was a great company, World Financial Group. I got nothing bad to say about it at all, but it was like $1 billion corporation, so even though it's very compassionate and everything, and they had like a great system and everything, I just could never get into the mindset that was necessary to be a success at that business. I mean, I worked as hard as anybody. Well, maybe not as hard as anybody, but I worked hard, and I learned my craft and everything, and I could like sell policies and everything. But I realized that the my motivation was never really to serve people for their better good. It was to make the paycheck.
yeah,
And the people who succeeded there were the ones who saw life insurance as the savior of like retirement and the long term picture and everything. And I like I've had like insights about that, but the point is that basically for the last year I worked for free, and and they just encourage me and they say, you're very good, you're doing everything, and finally it just like started ringing hollow and just like, and my heart wasn't in it. That's why, that's why I wasn't selling. It had nothing to do with the products or anything. I'm a poet. I'm not an insurance salesman, even though Wallace Stevens, who's one of the greatest poets of the 20th century, was a insurance salesman.
well, I mean, and that's pointing to it exactly, isn't it? If your heart isn't in it, it's not possible to do your best. You're just going to do
Right.
something less than that, and so he and then he leads from that, like an example like you just gave, to doing the best in regard to the physical body, which I think is kind of interesting. He really brings that in whole because it's not about being perfect. It's about doing what makes your body feel good, and it's a community. He says to do that is like he calls it puja, which I didn't look up that term, but it's a communication between you and God. Your body is a manifestation of God, and if you honor it, everything will change for you. When you practice giving love to every part of your body, you plant a seed of love in your mind, and when they grow, you will love and honor and respect your body. And I thought that was really cool. Like he really gets into like this idea of ritual and trying to make as many things in your life like a ritual. So like your shower, you could be like, hey, I'm honoring my body, I'm cleansing it, I'm sending it love. Your dinner, you could honor your food and that how it's fueling and nourishing your cells. To really like bring that level of like almost consciousness to as much of your life as possible, and it will
Right.
create this like almost like synergistic effect that will kind of have it feed downstream into all parts of your life.
Well,
I thought,
I have a ritual as my shower. I've been taking cold showers for at least a year, I think, at this point. But every morning I have a cold shower. I get in and I say, I'm so happy and grateful to be God's greatest creation. No one ever has been or ever will be the equal of me. I live my life. I control my life because I control myself. Nothing on the outside will ever change the person I am on the inside. Amen. I learned
there
that
you
from
go.
Bob Proctor. I learned
Nice.
that from Bob Proctor.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, my parents were really big about praying before meals, and that's a form of ritual. Praying before bed, and I don't know. It's a practice that I'm slowly integrating more and more. I stopped. I would have my phone out or have a video playing while I was eating most of my meals, and then I realized
Right,
like
right.
I don't even. sometimes I don't even look at my food, right? It's just like, you're looking at the screen and you're inhaling it. And it's like, well, now I haven't honored that sustenance, that animal, that vegetable, whatever it is that I'm putting in my body. And so it is like there is like a kind of a beauty to it when you can be more intentional with like these things that we consider small actions.
Right.
And what I see with that is it feeds into like your intention muscle, right? Like if I bring intention to more of these things, I'll bring intention to all of these things, all of
Right.
life, and I'll be able to implement the four agreements because that's effectively what doing your best is all about. Is can you actually bring these into your life and make them a part of you and and just see the transformation, right? And so,
So
uh,
I think that this might be a good time for Sid for today. So
sure,
we left Sid with everyone in this world shares the same innate source of wisdom, but is hidden by the tangle of our own misguided personal thoughts. That that's one of the deeper ones. So now we move on to the next chapter, three principles. Mind, consciousness, and thought are the three principles uh, that enable us to acknowledge and respond to existence. They are the basic building blocks, and it is through these three components that all psychological mysteries are unfolded. They are what I call the psychological trinity. But talk about being impeccable with your word. Just the way he like summarizes. I mean, he really was sort of like a prophet, Or but so that's it for the day. But just remember, mind, consciousness, and thought. That's like the core of his teaching. Is that it's a trinity, a psychological trinity, as he calls it, or he also calls it a chemical compound by which all all consciousness and all awareness is activated to those three components.
yeah, I believe that. I mean, it sounds pretty foundational. I mean, the mind is sort of like this generator, and consciousness is what is like your antenna or something, and then
Right.
thought are the things
My,
that sort of come in.
thought is how the mind communicates, and that
Okay,
through consciousness.
there you go. Yeah, I like it. I like it. No, I think both these books point to really foundational principles that then you can kind of build on from there. And they're not overly complicated, they're not overly complex. And I think that's the point. Like, none of this has to be that complicated. We just complicate it because it it feels good to do so because we got this like idea that we have to suffer a little bit in order for it to be real or true or something. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe it can be simple.
Well,
Maybe,
it's an assumption that of a collective that we have to get rid of.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No,
But
I agree.
yeah, so I duh.
Is this, we've decided we're going to do a thumbnail post. We'll see if Riverside will capture that for us or not. I was doing the analogy of when you're riding a roller coaster and there's like a spot at the end where you can see the
Right.
flash going off. They're taking your photo, and so this is that point in the ride. All right, well, that was fun. What do you think? Is
So
it time to close this one out?
I think first we need a summary and a final word from you, Andrew, about because uh, this is your baby.
Yeah, well, the summary would be like the idea of breaking these old agreements and replacing them with new ones that are more real. And he describes it as like being a warrior. Like there can be a soldier is someone who takes orders. A warrior is someone who takes like ownership of their own existence and is like vigilant about, you know, the things that are in happening in their reality. And to me, like that's how I feel about it. It's like I have encouraged do not to use war terms and frame everything as like this against energy, but and that's not what he's even describing. He's just describing like a vigilance to root out these programs that run so deep into who we are and replace them with ones that are based in love. So whenever you feel like that fear-based program, to really be the warrior that wants to root it out and replace it with one that's based in love. And I think that's a good philosophy for life and to become to move into the kingdom of heaven. That's what this is about. It's about leaving the hell of the programming and entering the heaven of something that's based in truth,
Right.
and love.
Yeah. So, I guess it's time for my second lunar eclipse poem. Uh, but so oh, I know what's going. So I'm going to suggest a exercise that people have if they're interested about about assumptions, and so just write. I would suggest you just take 5 minutes and off the top of your head write down 5 to 7 assumptions that guide your life or that are prominent in your life, and from there you can like evaluate them and decide whether it's something you want to keep or not. But that's just something I think can be helpful, you know, because as it says, action steps are very important, and it's one thing to talk about it, but it's another thing to take action steps. And you know, and if you know what your assumptions are, then you can work on. And you don't like them, then you can work on changing them.
Yeah, yeah, and that actually brought something up. You know, he talks about how different parts of us will have different agreements, different programs, and so there can be inner conflict in those programs because one part of you will have this agreement and the other part will have this agreement, and to start to bring those in to where they're more in alignment, and part of that is what you just indicated is make an inventory of the assumptions or agreements in this case that you have, and you'll start to see where two can't exist, right? Where there's a conflict
Right.
or where there's inconsistency, and that's usually a great place to start because as soon as two agreements are in conflict, we know there's either a problem with one or the other or both, and I think that's an interesting thought exercise too.
Right. Well, I just I think you have it's all based on polarities. So the more you can like break down the differences and the polarities that you have within yourself, within the assumptions, within your identity, the closer you'll be to having inner peace. Because inner peace is ultimately reached when the polarity becomes unity. And
Yeah,
everything like sort of like rubber bands into itself.
preach, bro, for sure.
So with that, we have Echo of latest lunar eclipse, which is very relevant since this will be out on Monday. So Echo of latest lunar eclipse. Everybody has experienced heartbreak at least once, as I said, as I sail across the ocean of improbability of having your love, even as you pursue other bows. And I compose poem with depth of darkness unknown since Rimbaud and Baudelaire, while I count the ways I cherish you late into the nights of sad solitude. I endure trying to be positive deity. Will send will send me my predestined helpmate, no matter how long the wait until my true love manifests herself, as I can discover sweet emotion of a devotion I will carry through the immortality of a sacred life beyond this planet. So that's a love poem to Velvet, but inspired by the Dialine and the lunar eclipse.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Dale is a hopeless romantic.
No, I'm not a hopeless romantic. I'm a hopeful
There
romantic.
we go. I like it. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah.
Okay, well, so let me just put in my little plugs. I'm trying to get my link tree set up again, so hopefully it'll be in the notes for Monday. But Live Love is still very much alive and kicking and looking for clients. If you're a family member of someone with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, there's a Calendly link that we'll put in the notes, and you can call me for a 45-minute free session. And also, I'm working on getting my books going. There's going to be like a link to a website where you can inquire about my books and what's available. And other than that, I think that's about it. But and of course Instagram, TikTok, and I found this new one. It's called Bigo. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's like totally live. I mean, people just like hit hello, and then they like stay on this video channel for like hours at a time, just like looking at comments and smiling. I met lots of beautiful young ladies who are just smiling and shaking their booties all the time for like 2 hours at a time on on live video, you know. So I got on and I said a few things just to get and I Mr. Do there, and so now every time I go to like see someone, I see all these people say, "Mr. Do, how are you?"
Yeah, I can't keep up with the new social media platforms. I mean,
Yeah, it's
if
well,
one of them gets some traction, fine, great, whatever. Yeah, I feel like there's too many already.
right. Well, I think I'm competing with too many young women.
Well, that's facts, bro. I just the
But
pornography
of course,
industry is doing quite well these days. Let's just put it that
no,
way.
but not only that, but actually, I'm probably like in a good situation because there's so few men on it that all these beautiful women who are on might tune me in to see what a male has to say.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sure it's not about advertising their OnlyFans page.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like how many guys are paying for porn that these women can make so much money? That's what fucking blows my mind. Is like
Right.
how many is it? I can't even fathom paying for pornography. That just sounds like pure insanity. But that's my opinion.
Well, y- it's not even really pornography. It's just like slipping into something comfortable.
What's the
Usually,
difference? What's the difference? It's
right,
pixels on
right,
a screen, bro. It's
right,
freaking. The idea is to pull your sexual energy into them, and then
right.
you're giving away your power to pixels, and that sounds real dumb to me.
And that's what Gabby was talking about this week.
Yeah. No,
Don't make your phone yourself.
literally become a cybernetic organism where you're loving a pixel,
Yeah,
literally giving your
that's
love to a
what I
pixel.
work.
No, thank you. But yes, I'm glad you're exploring the underworld of the internet.
Yep. So right at 1 hour. So I'll say goodnight. And Andrew, thanks very much, and thanks very much for the education about the four agreements. And people follow them, and why don't you just like give the four agreements quickly, just as a recap, and then we'll say goodnight.
Okay. The four agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Do not take anything personally. Do not make assumptions. And always do your best.
Beautiful. Till next time, everybody, remember to subscribe. Spread the word. We're the conspiracy that matters, and we don't talk politics. And although I'm thinking about as a diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, maybe I should like do a conspiracy every once in a while. I came up with some good ones, right, Andy?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I I just can't get. I've been sucked. I told you I got sucked into that world this week, and then I took a step back and realized I was not being impeccable with my own self. I was not being
Right.
careful with my energy, and I was giving power to this thing that is outside of us. And so, to me, it was like a real reminder that I can have compassion for these people that I feel like may be misguided, but I don't know their story. I don't know anything about them, and so why would I have an emotional reaction to something that has literally nothing to do with me? And
Right.
that kind of helped bring things back to me and my personal power. And I think that was important.
I'm going to like close this down before I say something that gets me in trouble. So,
Okay, good.
good night, everybody. Take care.
Bye. We love you.